This is Kiyotaka Ayanokoji, an ordinary student who starts attending high school at Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing High School. This prestigious institution was established by the Japanese government to train the nation's top students. Ayanokoji finds himself in Class 1D, where his homeroom teacher, Chabashirase, explains the school's unique point system. She explains that students will live in dormitories and receive a monthly allowance of 100,000 points, which can be spent as money at any of the school's stores, with 1 point equal to 1 yen. However, she also warns that students will be judged based on merit. After class, Ayanokoji goes to the supermarket to buy some things he needs. While shopping, he runs into his classmate and takes the opportunity to ask for her name. She introduces herself as Horikita Suzune. Ayanokoji notices that she's buying only cheap items, so he tries to strike up a conversation with her. However, she dismisses him, making it clear that she has no desire to make friends. The next day at school, Class 1D starts forming small groups, but Ayanokoji realizes he hasn't made any friends. As he tries to leave, he meets Kushida Kikyo, a cheerful and outgoing classmate who wants to be friends with everyone. She notices that Ayanokoji is close to Horikita and asks if he can help her get to know her better. After class, Ayanokoji invites Horikita to a cafe while secretly arranging for Kushida and a few other classmates to be there. Kushida suddenly approaches them and tries to strike up a conversation, but Horikita immediately sees through the plan and tries to leave. Kushida begs her to stay, but Horikita tells her she doesn't need any friends and walks away. Meanwhile, the rest of Class 1D spends their points carelessly and slacks off in class without facing any consequences. This behavior makes Ayanokoji suspicious about the true nature of the school. On the first day of May, the students of Class 1D are shocked to find they haven't received their monthly points. When they ask their teacher why, she explains that their allowance depends on their merit. Since they have ignored their studies, the class receives no points for the month, leaving everyone stunned. Se then reveals more about the school's system, explaining that the 4 first-year classes are ranked based on their merit, and how Class D has the chance to rise to Class C if they succeed in their exams. However, she warns that students who fail another test will be expelled immediately. Now fully aware of the system, most Class D students start taking their studies seriously, except for Ken Sudo, Kanji Ike, and Hiroki Yamauchi, who refuse to study. Horikita invites Ayanokoji to an expensive lunch to discuss her study plans. She wants him to help her persuade the 3 idiots to join her study group, so she can achieve Class A. Ayanokoji initially refuses to participate in her plan, but since he has already eaten the lunch she bought, he has no choice but to accept. However, when he tries to talk to them, they refuse to join. To resolve this, Ayanokoji calls Kushida using the dorm's internal phone system and asks for her help in inviting them to study. In exchange, he allows her to join Horikita's study group. The next day at the library, Sudo refuses to study, claiming he wants to focus on becoming a professional basketball player. Horikita talks down about him, which leads to an argument and makes the group walk away. Later that night, Ayanokoji goes out for a drink and overhears Horikita arguing with her older brother, Manabu Horikita, who happens to be the student council president. Manabu accuses her of dishonoring their family by ending up in Class D and tells her she'll never make it to Class A. When he tries to attack her, Ayanokoji steps in and stops him. Manabu then turns his attacks on Ayanokoji, but he easily dodges his strikes. This catches Manabu's attention, and he begins to question Ayanokoji's fighting skills, but Ayanokoji casually says he only learned piano and calligraphy. Manabu remembers Ayanokoji's exam scores, noting that he always got exactly 50 on both the entry exams and a recent quiz. He asks if Ayanokoji did this on purpose, but Ayanokoji dismisses it as a coincidence. Manabu is also surprised that his sister seems to have made a friend, but she denies it because she doesn't need one, which disappoints Manabu before he leaves. After the encounter, Horikita awkwardly apologizes to Ayanokoji for what happened, but he brushes it off as nothing. He then asks if she's given up on the study group, and Horikita coldly replies that those who fail aren't her concern. Ayanokoji suggests that her cold attitude might be why she ended up in Class D, but Horikita refuses to answer. A few days after the midterm exams, Class D surprises everyone by performing surprisingly well, with some students even getting top scores among the first years. 3 days before the test, Ayanokoji invited Sudo to join a study group but found him arguing with Class C students. When Sudo tried to fight back, 2 students held him down while their leader, Kakeru Ryuan, mocked him, predicting that he would fail the test and get expelled. Just as things got worse, a student from Class B, Honami Ichinose, stepped in and demanded that they stop. Ichinose threatened to call the school security, forcing them to release Sudo and leave. Even though he was saved, Sudo felt embarrassed and wanted revenge, but Ayana Koji and Ichinose convinced him to drop the idea. After things calmed down, Ayana Koji asked Sudo again to join the study group, but Sudo refused and went to basketball practice. After practice, Horikita approached him and handed him a notebook she summarized for him. She told him that if he wants to keep playing basketball, he needs to take his studies seriously. 2 days before the exam, Ayana Koji and Kushida met a second-year student to buy old exam questions. Ayana Koji offered 15,000 points, and after some negotiation, they made a deal. When Ayana Koji checked the questions, he realized they were the same as those from 3 years ago. He asked Kushida to take the credit and tell the class she got the papers so he could stay low-key. The day before the exam, Kushida shared the old exam questions with Class D, motivating everyone to study. When the results are announced, Sei says that most students passed the exam except Ken Sudo, who failed by just 1 point and faced expulsion. Despite the students begging Sei to reconsider, she firmly says that rules are rules. Later, while Sei is alone on the rooftop, Ayana Koji approaches her and asks if true equality exists. She says it doesn't, and Ayana Koji agrees. He offers to use his points to save Sudo, but Sei asks for 100,000 points, which he can't afford. Just then, Horikita arrives and offers to split the cost, giving 50,000 points along with Ayana Koji's 50,000. Impressed by their effort, Sei accepts their offer and agrees not to expel Sudo. That night, Kushida throws a small party in Ayana Koji's room to celebrate Sudo staying in school. When she asks if he was the one who saved Sudo, Ayana Koji gives credit to Horikita for standing up to their teacher. Everyone starts to admire Horikita, but Kushida secretly feels jealous. After cleaning up, Kushida thanks Ayana Koji for the party and says goodbye, but she accidentally leaves her phone behind. Ayana Koji follows her to return it, but when he finds her, he accidentally sees her true self, cold and full of hatred for Horikita. Suddenly, her phone rings, and Ayana Koji has no choice but to reveal himself. Realizing he has seen her real side, Kushida threatens him to keep it a secret or she will falsely accuse him of assault by making him touch her melons and using his fingerprints as evidence. Ayana Koji promises to keep her secret, and she lets him go. As she takes a deep breath and returns to her bubbly personality, Ayana Koji wonders if the kind and cheerful Kushida everyone knows is an act, or if her darker side is who she really is. The next morning, Ayana Koji waits for the elevator and runs into Kushida and Horikita, who are also heading to class. Kushida starts talking to him, making Ayana Koji think about her past actions, which leave him unsure about her. He asks Horikita if she's made peace with Kushida, but Horikita says she doesn't have a choice. Before they head to class, Ichinose cheerfully greets Kushida and wonders if Class D has received their monthly points. In class, Sei announces that the point distribution has been delayed due to an incident involving Sudo and 3 students from Class C, 2 of whom are his basketball teammates. Sudo was attacked and fought back in self-defense, but if they don't find a witness to prove his innocence before next week's hearing, Sudo will be blamed and the class will lose their points. Later, Ayana Koji meets Ichinose, who asks him to pretend to be her boyfriend. She explains that she found a love letter in her locker and doesn't want to hurt the person's feelings. Ayana Koji refuses and tells her to be honest about how she feels. It turns out the letter is from her friend, Chihiro Shiranami, who soon shows up and asks who he is. Ichinose tries to say he's her boyfriend, but Ayana Koji calmly says they're just friends. He advises Ichinose to tell Chihiro the truth. Realizing it's not his place to get involved, Ayana Koji leaves while the two continue to talk. While waiting, Ayana Koji checks his phone and sees he still hasn't received any points. He then notices Chihiro running away in tears, followed by Ichinose, who thanks him and promises to return the favor someday. The next day, Class D puts up messages asking for witnesses to the fight. Ichinose and her classmate offer to help and share an anonymous message they received. The message claims the 3 Class C students are skilled fighters who like to bully others, and they believe that Sudo is being framed. Ichinose wants to thank the person who sent the message but doesn't know how since it's anonymous. She asks Ayana Koji for help, but when he looks at her phone, he's surprised to see that she has 2.6 million points, even though students are only supposed to have 100,000 points. That evening, Ayana Koji finds Sudo and their friends hanging out in his dorm. Horikita soon arrives, but when she sees the others, she decides to leave. Before leaving, she tells them that one of their classmates, Sakura Eri, witnessed the incident and even captured it on her camera. Kushida tries to call Sakura, but she doesn't answer. The next day at school, Kushida approaches Sakura and asks if she witnessed the incident, but Sakura becomes nervous and tries to walk away. In her rush, she accidentally drops her camera. Unfortunately, it won't turn on anymore, so she quickly picks it up and runs away, clearly scared of getting involved and worried that her secret might be exposed. Later, Sakura asks Ayanokoji and Kushida to accompany her to an electronics store to fix her camera. The store manager checks the camera but starts acting suspiciously and asks for her contact information. Sakura gets scared because of his behavior, so Ayanokoji steps in and gives his contact details instead, telling the manager to contact him when the repair is done. Afterward, Sakura thanks Ayanokoji for helping her, but he dismisses it as nothing. Kushida excuses herself to the restroom, leaving Sakura and Ayanokoji alone. After a moment of silence, Sakura asks for advice on what she should do. Ayanokoji suggests her to follow her feelings and avoid making choices she might regret. Sakura blushes and stares at him until Kushida returns and suggests they call it a day. Before leaving, Kushida asks if she can stop by Ayanokoji's room later. That evening, Kushida visits Ayanokoji and shows him some photos, revealing that Sakura is actually an internet model. That's why she wears fake glasses to hide her identity at school. Just then, Kushida gets a text from Sakura, saying she's decided to be Sudo's witness. The next day after school, the president of student council summons Class 1C and Class 1D to give their testimonies. As the secretary council reads assumptions about the fight, Sudo stands up and denies everything, claiming that Class 1C started the fight. When it's Horikita's turn to speak, Ayanokoji notices she's zoning out because she's nervous about her brother being there. To snap her out of it, he subtly pokes her, making her react quickly. He reminds her that she needs to defend their class. Horikita then asks the three Class 1C students about the fight and points out that it's almost impossible for Sudo alone to cause such serious injuries in a 3-against-1 fight. She then presents Sakura as a witness, saying she saw everything. However, Class C's homeroom teacher, Kazuma Sakagami, asks if Class D told Sakura to lie and defend Sudo. Sakura firmly says she isn't lying and that she has proof. When they check the evidence, they find a picture showing that the three Class 1C students threatened Sudo to make him fight. After seeing the evidence, Sakagami argues that the evidence only proves Sakura was there but it doesn't completely prove Sudo's innocence. He then proposes a compromise to suspend Sudo for 2 weeks and the Class 1C students for 1 week each. Horikita immediately rejects the idea, saying Sudo did nothing wrong and that Class C planned the whole thing. Horikita then asks her brother for his opinion. Manabu ends the hearing and says he will make a final decision the next day unless new evidence or a confession appears. After the meeting, Sakura apologizes to Ayanokoji for not speaking up earlier, but he reassures her that her statement was still helpful. As Manabu and his secretary walk out, Manabu remarks that he expected a clever strategy from Ayanokoji and Horikita, but Ayanokoji dismisses it. When Manabu turns his attention to Sakura, he hints that her testimony might be a lie. Ayanokoji immediately stands up for her, saying he believes her. Suddenly, Manabu tries to hit Ayanokoji, but Ayanokoji easily dodges the attack, leaving Sakura and the secretary shocked. Manabu then asks if Ayanokoji can prove that Sakura is telling the truth, and Ayanokoji calmly replies, "there are no security cameras in the area, so Horikita comes up with a plan. Later, when Sakura is alone in the classroom, Ayanokoji comes by to thank her for helping save Sudo and their class. He promises to help her if she ever needs anything, which makes her blush. But just as she's about to say something, Ayanokoji gets a message from Kushida and has to leave. The three boys from Class C expect to meet Kushida, but are shocked to see Ayanokoji instead, who tells them she isn't coming. When the boys try to leave, Horikita stops them and points to the security cameras on the stairway wall, which makes them nervous since the footage could show that they started the fight. The boys ask why the school hasn't said anything, and Ayanokoji explains that the school is waiting to see how the students will handle the situation. Afraid of getting expelled, the boys listen as Ayanokoji gives them an option: if they withdraw their accusations, no one will be punished. One of the boys tries to make a phone call, but Horikita grabs his phone and mocks him for being nothing more than a pawn. The boy gets angry and tries to hit her, but she calmly reminds him about the cameras watching them. With no other choice, the boys agree to drop their accusations. Later that evening, Sakura is walking near the school store when she realizes someone is following her. She tries to get away, but the person keeps chasing her. Meanwhile, Ayanokoji returns the fake cameras to Ichinose and promises to pay back the points he borrowed. She happily celebrates Class D's victory and praises him for his clever plan. Suddenly, Ayanokoji receives a panicked call from Sakura, but the call ends suddenly. It turns out that Sakura is being pinned down by the store manager, who turns out to be her biggest fan. Just as he is about to do something, Ayanokoji arrives and takes a picture of them. He warns the man that the photo will make the headline news the next day. The manager panics and tries to escape, but Ichinose has already called the police, who arrive just in time to arrest him. After everything settles down, Ayana Koji explains that he tracked her location through his phone. He reassures her that she shouldn't let this incident stop her from being herself. Sakura apologizes for not telling him earlier and decides she won't hide from him anymore. Meanwhile, on the school rooftop, Sei asks Horikita how they convinced Class C to drop their complaint. Refusing to answer, Sei changes the topic and tells her to learn more about Ayana Koji, calling him the key to reaching Class A. She also mentions that Class D is for students the school sees as defective, and she believes Ayana Koji is the most mysterious of them all. In the meantime, Ayana Koji runs into Manabu and his secretary in the hallway. Manabu praises him for proving Sakura's innocence and making Class C withdraw their complaint, but Ayana Koji insists it was Horikita's plan. Manabu then offers him a position as student council secretary, but Ayana Koji turns it down, saying he just wants a normal school life. Manabu accepts his decision but warns him not to disappoint him. After failing to get Sudo expelled, Ryuan punishes the Class C boys for giving up and demands to know who tricked them. That night, Ayana Koji meets Horikita, who accuses him of knowing there were no cameras and letting her use fake evidence to blackmail the boys. He denies it and tries to leave. She stops him and demands to know who he really is. This triggers a flashback where Ayana Koji recalls being part of a mysterious group, calmly watching as someone collapsed in pain. Back in the present, he tells Horikita he will help her reach Class A, but warns her not to pry into his life again. A few weeks after final exams, the students finally begin their summer vacation. Horikita plans to stay in her dorm and study, but Ayana Koji calls and invites her to the pool. She immediately refuses, but he keeps calling until she finally picks up and agrees. The night before, a group of Class D boys secretly plans to peek into the girls' changing room at the pool. The next day, Horikita packs her swimsuit and heads to the pool. On the way, she runs into Kei Karuizawa and Yosuke Hirata, who are now a couple. Hirata invites Horikita to hang out with Class D more, but she refuses, saying she would rather study. Karuizawa then tells Hirata to stay away from her since she doesn't have any friends. At the pool, Hideo Sotomura leads the boys' operation from the school warehouse, giving instructions using a walkie-talkie and hand signals. Yamauchi disguises himself as a janitor and sneaks into the girls' changing room to set up hidden cameras. However, he fails to install them, causing a long line outside and making the girls suspicious. Seeing this, Sotomura tells Yamauchi to abandon the mission and sends Ike to complete the job instead. But things get complicated when Ryuan and Class C students head toward the changing room. To protect their plan, Sotomura signals Sudo, who pretends to go to the toilet and blocks Ryuan from entering. The situation gets even worse when Class A's leader, Sakayanaji Arisu, arrives and argues with Ryuan for blocking her way. Just as a fight seems about to break out, Manabu steps in and reminds everyone that they are still on school grounds and must follow the rules. Sotomura quickly alerts Ayana Koji, who asks Horikita to stand on the diving platform and give a speech about Class D's goal of reaching Class A. The distraction works, allowing Ike to escape unnoticed, making the operation a success. After her speech, Horikita sneaks into the changing room and removes the SD cards, ruining the boys' operation. Ayana Koji admits he let it happen because the boys might have acted behind his back anyway. When he asks if she had fun, Horikita says she didn't come to have fun. In response, Ayana Koji pushes her into the pool, and the other students join in, creating a fun moment. That night, Ayana Koji emails Horikita a picture of her with the Class D students. Even though she says she doesn't need friends, she can't help but smile at the photo. Sei meets Ayana Koji at the school's theater and tells him that someone asked the school to expel him. She offers to protect him, but all he has to do is work to reach Class A. Ayana Koji refuses and tries to leave, but Sei warns that if he doesn't cooperate, he will be expelled and lose his freedom. Ayana Koji grabs her by the collar, telling her she'll regret for trying to manipulate him. Sei stays calm and says her life is already full of regrets. After letting her go, Ayana Koji walks to the front of the ship, wondering if he should reveal his true abilities at school. All the first-year students are on a class trip, but it feels more like a summer vacation because they are staying on a luxury cruise ship. Ayana Koji meets with Horikita, who doesn't believe it's just a simple school trip. He suspects the school has secret plans and might take them to a private island. While they talk, Ryuan and his bodyguard, Albert, approach Horikita about the security cameras and try to manipulate her. A student from Class C, Mio Ibuki, steps in to confront Ryuan, but Albert roughly stops her and pushes her aside. Horikita tells Ayana Koji that Class C might be falling apart from the inside. Later that evening, Sakura nervously practices asking Ayana Koji on a date. But when he arrives, she changes her mind and asks him to help her get along with their classmates. Ayana Koji agrees, making her so happy that she grabs his hand. Just then, Kushida appears and sees Sakura holding Ayana Koji's hand, causing Sakura to get embarrassed and quickly leave. When Ayana Koji tries to leave too, Kushida stops him and admits she knows he's being careful around her. He confirms it, and she switches back to her cheerful self, saying she hates being left alone. The next morning, the students gather on the deck and see a beautiful island ahead. Soon after, the teachers reveal that each class must survive on a deserted island for a week. This surprises everyone, as they have never faced a challenge like this before. Before the survival test starts, Class 1D reviews their supplies and the 300 S points given to them. They must use these points carefully because any leftover points will be added to their class score after the test. Points are lost if students get sick, damage the environment, skip the test, or fight with other classes. The class starts looking for a place to camp, while Ayana Koji secretly worries about Horikita's condition. After taking a short break, Hirata suggests that they should split up into smaller teams to find a good camping spot faster. When he asks for volunteers, Ayana Koji raises his hand along with a few others. Hirata forms 3 teams, and Ayana Koji teams up with Sakura and Koenji. Koenji moves quickly, jumping around like a monkey on tree branches. Ayana Koji and Sakura struggle to keep up and eventually fall behind. While searching for him, they find a path leading to a cave. They recall Sei explaining the rules: each class must choose a leader and find a camping spot. For every 8 hours they hold the spot, they earn bonus points. At the end of the test, classes will try to guess the leaders of other classes. A correct guess earns 50 extra points, while a wrong guess loses 50 points, so the leaders must keep their identity secret. As they try to get a closer look, Ayana Koji suddenly stops Sakura and hides behind a tree as he sees Kohei Katsuragi from Class A holding a leader card and talking to Tatsuka Yahiko. Katsuragi feels like someone is watching and checks the bushes but finds nothing. After they leave, Ayana Koji releases Sakura and goes to the cave, where they realize Class A has already claimed the spot. They suspect that Katsuragi might be Class A's leader and return to report their findings. Meanwhile, Ike finds a good spot near a clear river, and Class D decides to camp there. When it's time to choose a leader, Kushida suggests Horikita take the role and secure the campsite. To hide the leader's identity, they form a small group around her. While the others set up the tents, Ayana Koji, Yamauchi, and Sakura go to collect firewood. When they return, they find Ibuki from Class 1C injured after being attacked by Ryuan and her own class. Yamauchi and Sakura invite her to stay at their camp, and she agrees. When they get back to the camp, the girls bring fresh fruit to celebrate their first day of survival. The group talks about how to use their S points and decides to save as many as possible, keeping 120 points by the end of the week. Suddenly, they realize Koenji is missing and find out that he claims to be sick and wants to return to the ship, which will minus 30 S points from the class. In a flashback, a mysterious man walked up to a young Ayana Koji and said that having great power but not using it is something only a fool person would do. On the second day of the test, Ayana Koji and Horikita check out other classes' camps. After walking a short distance, they find Class B near a waterfall with a cleaner and more organized camp than Class D. Then, they see Class A camping inside a guarded cave. When Horikita tries to peek inside, Katsuragi comes out with his security and warns that her actions could start a war. To avoid trouble, they decide to leave. Later, they find Class C camping on the beach, relaxing like they are on vacation. When they confront Ryuan about wasting all their points, he tells them to mind their own business. Horikita then asks why he beat Ibuki and kicked her out of the class, and Ryuan admits he punished her for disobeying him. On their way back, Ayana Koji realizes that Ryuan's 0-point strategy is actually smart, because students can pretend to be sick and return to the cruise without getting any penalty. On the third night, someone secretly sneaks into the girls' tent and takes Ibuki's bag. When they open it, they find something suspicious inside. On the fourth day, they are surprised to see that Class C has already left the island and gone back to the ship. Later that evening, Class D gathers and wonders why Class C gave up so early. Sudo accuses Ibuki of knowing something, but when he tries to stop her, she denies it and leaves the camp. On the fifth day, Karuizawa finds out that her underwear is missing. The girls call the boys out of their tent and demand to search their bags. As the boys line up, Ike is shocked to see something in his bag, which Yamauchi tries to look and find the missing underwear. Ike insists that he's innocent and secretly hands the underwear to Ayana Koji before running away. Hirata tells the girls that the search found nothing, but they don't believe him and ask to pat down the boys. Ayano Koji feels nervous because the underwear is in his pocket. When Hirata checks Ayano Koji, he says there is nothing suspicious. Later, Ayano Koji asks Hirata why he didn't expose him. Hirata says he trusts Ayano Koji and knows he wouldn't steal. Hirata asks for the underwear and takes the blame, saying his reputation won't be affected much, since Karuizawa is his girlfriend. Later that day, the girls suggest separating the boys' and girls' camps to prevent another incident with missing underwear. They ask Hirata to help move the girls' tent, but Horikita disagrees and suggests adding another boy to supervise since Hirata is also a boy. The girls say they don't trust any of the boys, but Horikita picks Ayano Koji, saying he seems different from the others. While Ayano Koji and Hirata are setting up the girls' tent, one of the girls calls Hirata to help her, and he has to leave. Left alone, Ayano Koji keeps working until Ibuki suddenly shows up. She asks if he also thinks she is the underwear thief since many people suspect her. Ayano Koji says he trusts her, making Ibuki blush and nervously thank him. After finishing his work, Ayano Koji secretly goes back to the spot where he first found Ibuki. Feeling suspicious, he starts looking for clues. That night, Horikita approaches Ayano Koji and thanks him for helping. He tells her he knows she has been sick the whole time, but she insists she is fine. Without another word, he holds her still and checks her temperature. She has a high fever, but Horikita insists she is fine and wants to keep going with the test. On the sixth day, Ayano Koji and Horikita gather some foods by the river. While they are fishing, Ayano Koji asks Horikita to show her leader card because he wants to check if it matches the one he saw from Class A. After looking at it, Ayano Koji lies and says the card he saw earlier was different. Yamaochi suddenly puts mud on Horikita's head as a prank. She grabs his hand and throws him into the river. After that, she goes to a nearby waterfall to wash her hair. When she returns to the camp, Horikita invites Ayano Koji to talk in private. As they walk into the woods, she tells him that someone stole her leader card, which surprises him. Horikita suspects either Karuizawa, who doesn't like her, or Ibuki, who is an outsider. Ayano Koji mentions that Ibuki seemed suspicious when she was taking shower. Horikita asks for some time alone to think, so Ayano Koji leaves. Not long after, Horikita smells smoke and sees it coming from the camp. It turns out someone has started a fire and burned the survival test manual. After they put out the fire, the girls blame the boys for being careless, and everyone starts blaming each other. Kushida asks if anyone has seen Ibuki, but she is missing. Horikita chases after Ibuki and eventually catches up with her. She demands Ibuki return the leader card, but Ibuki attacks her. Horikita reminds her that fighting is against the rules, but Ibuki doesn't care, saying no one will find out. Horikita tries her best to fight back, but her body is too weak, and Ibuki knocks her down. After winning, Ibuki hands the leader card to the person who asked for it. Ibuki then digs up the walkie-talkie she buried and contacts Katsuragi, telling him she got Class D's leader card. It turns out Class A and Class C have been secretly working together. Later, Horikita wakes up and finds Ayano Koji sitting next to her. He explains what happened and suggests she should quit the test as her fever is getting worse. But Horikita refuses, blaming herself for losing the leader card and not having friends to rely on. Ayano Koji quietly touches her neck, causing her to slowly lose consciousness and collapse. He then carries her to the teacher's camp and asks Sei to send her back to the ship. She warns that Class D will lose points, but Ayano Koji agrees without any hesitation. While Class D worries about Ibuki's disappearance and Horikita's illness, Ayano Koji secretly tells Hirata that Ibuki stole Horikita's leader card. Hirata feels hopeless, thinking they will lose because of all the problems, but Ayano Koji already has a plan. On the final day, the students clean up their camps and try to guess the leaders of the other classes. Ayano Koji gives Hirata a list of names to write it down. As they gather at the beach, Ryuun suddenly appears, as he is the only member of Class C still on the island. Katsuragi thanks Ryuun for helping Class A to get 500 S points, but Ryuun tells him to wait because something interesting is about to happen. Back at the first day, Ryuun made a deal with Katsuragi. Class C gave Class A 200 S points worth of supplies and promised to give information about Class B's and Class D's leaders. Ryuun sent Ibuki and another Class C member to spy on the other classes, while he spent their last 100 points at their camp. When most of Class C dropped out and returned to the ship, Ryuun stayed behind and survived alone in the forest. Later, one of Sakayanagi's allies secretly told Ryuun about Class A's leader. Even though Ibuki's camera broke, she managed to steal Horikita's leader card as proof. On the final day, Sakagami meets with Ryuun and gives him the leader form. Ryuan confidently guesses the leaders: Tatsuka Yahiko for Class A, Shiranami Chihiro for Class B, and Horikita for Class D. He is sure Class C will win and become the top class. But when the teacher announces the results, everyone is shocked. Class C gets 0 points, Class A gets 120 points, Class B gets 140 points, and Class D wins with 225 points. Class D is both surprised and excited, while the other classes are left confused. Back on the cruise ship, while Class D celebrates their victory, Horikita finds Ayanokoji and asks how Class D won. Ayanokoji explains that he knew Ibuki was a spy, so he broke her camera. He then set a trap. He waited for the right moment, showed Ibuki the leader card, told Yumachi to cover her head in mud, and let Ibuki steal it. To help her escape, he burned the survival book as a distraction. Just as he planned, he made Horikita drop out so he could secretly take her place as the real leader. He also explains how he figured out the other leaders. On the first day, he saw Katsuragi holding the leader card but knew Katsuragi was too careful to be the real leader. So, he guessed Tatsuka Yahiko was Class A's leader. For Class C, he noticed that Ryuan had the same kind of walkie-talkie as Ibuki, so he guessed Ryuan was their leader. He chose not to find Class B's leader to protect Class D's alliance with them. Horikita is amazed by Ayanokoji's strategy and asks why he is doing all this if he doesn't care about reaching Class A. Before he can answer, the other Class D students arrive and thank Horikita, believing that she led them to victory. Ayanokoji planned this so the class would trust her. Later, Kushida talks to Ayanokoji, and says she really hates Horikita. She thinks he trusts Horikita more, but when he doesn't choose either of them, she calls him mean. Ayanokoji then gets a message from Sei, asking him to meet in the ship's theater. She is impressed by how smart he is for winning the test. As her promise, she tells him that the person who wants him expelled is Ayanokoji's father, but now his father believes Ayanokoji will leave on his own. When Ayanokoji returns to his room, Horikita confronts him for making the class think she led them to victory. He calmly says that she needs allies and admits she has already changed. She blushes and considers him as her first ally, but warns him not to get too close because her only goal is to reach Class A. In his mind, Ayanokoji admits that he doesn't see Horikita, Kushida, or Hirata as his ally. To him, all people are just tools to help him win, and the only thing that matters is victory. That's a wrap. Thanks for watching.